live in an ecosystem where anyone can access information anytime from anywhere. And sometimes we may also then begin to question if everything is available to everyone from anywhere, anytime, what do we teachers do? What is our role? Thinking is an abstract kind of an activity. Is it thinking versus rote learning, or is it thinking and rote learning? There is a problem in what we are memorizing and also whether that act of memorizing is leading to thinking or not. Creativity follows mastery. So mastery of skills is the first priority of young talent. Learning can happen in three domains: psychomotor, affective, and cognitive. Theme was suggested to me, unlocking the power of thought beyond rote learning. I immediately grabbed, I should say, the opportunity because it's my passion. And also, I'm very happy to see such motivated and a group of stakeholders here who are also committed to nurturing thinking among students. So the purpose of this talk is to understand what is thinking. Since I think rote learning is a familiar term and we are moving in the direction of nurturing thinking, I think we should try to understand what is thinking. And then the talk will move to trying to understand how teaching learning experiences and assessment are to be linked to nurture thinking among students. The ability to think is particularly important in the present circumstances and in the present information-rich ecosystem where AAA operates. As we all must have heard, it's a cliche now, but let me repeat it. We live in an ecosystem where anyone can access information anytime from anywhere. And sometimes we may also then begin to question if everything is available to everyone from anywhere, anytime, what do we teachers do? What is our role? And I think the topic does lay the path for the role of teachers, that is to nurture thinking among students. Now, I will be discussing about thinking. I'll be discussing then later about Bloom's taxonomy, which may perhaps help us to understand various levels of thinking that can be cultivated among students. And the discussion is suggestive, which at your end, then you can practice further or read further to maybe strategize your own exercises in the context that you teach the students. So let me begin now. I'll begin with this question: what is thinking? Let me also share with you that it's not that I'm going to speak all the time, so I may also raise a few questions for the audience so that the talk can move. So since the emphasis is on thinking, let us try to understand what is thinking. So if anybody from the audience would like to respond, I shall be happy. Maybe I'll take this question forward and gradually everyone can join in. So, yes. I see Pandurang Swami. Yes, please.
So can you please unmute yourself and talk?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, please.
It's creative thinking means to knowing the something which is commonly we can speak.
Okay. Knowing something that we can commonly speak. Fine, very nice. Anyone else would like to respond?
Ma'am, from Professor T. Alvar Murugan, the comment. Thinking is reflecting on knowledge.
Okay, it's thinking. Thinking is reflecting on knowledge. All right, two very, very important terms: reflection and knowledge, and we shall take it up at a later point of the talk. Very nice. Anyone else? Okay, maybe as you come across an idea, you can always stop me and share your thought. So let me share this the anecdote that happens each year as I uh, take this class on thinking for the teacher trainees, and I ask them that when I say, please think, what do you do? So they ponder for some time and they say, like, we think. I said, no, no, that's what I want to understand. When I say, please think, what do you exactly do? And then there is a little pause in the sense that they're also trying to understand what is thinking and what exactly happens when we think. And then they also try to understand that thinking is an abstract kind of an activity. It's an abstract realm, because when I say please write, there is a physical act of writing. When I say speak, there is a physical act of speaking. So it's very easy to demonstrate. But when I say a jump or walk, again, these are very demonstrable and physical acts, and it's very easy to do what one is asking the other person to do. But when we say what is thinking, it becomes extremely difficult. And if it is so abstract, then it becomes a challenging task for the teachers also to teach thinking to the students. Taking this further now, I think rote memorization, rote learning was also introduced in the initial part of the introduction. So how should we connect these two terms? Is it thinking versus rote learning, or is it thinking and rote learning, or is there any other way of connecting these two terms? I look forward to responses.
Rote learning is just memorizing
All right.
from Alvar Murugan.
Yes, yes. So that's very nice. My question is, how should we connect thinking and rote learning? Should we say these are binaries, two different things? So thinking versus rote learning, or is it both going parallelly, thinking and rote learning? Or if you have any other idea of how to connect these two activities, then please do share. I think current thought is
It's
moving towards, yes, somebody wants to share. Yes, please.
Yeah, it is a way to understand what is learned.
Yes, it's
Professor
a way to
TN.
understand what, yes, it's how it is learned. So currently what is happening is our thought processes are moving in the direction of binary. We want thinking, we do not want rote learning. So it is not exactly a binary, and it is not very impractical also to memorize something. But there is a problem in what we are memorizing, and also whether that act of memorizing is leading to thinking or not. So those are the aspects which we need to think about. So, moving further now, this is a quote: what any person in the world can learn, almost all persons can learn, if provided with appropriate prior and current conditions of learning. Somebody called Mr. Benjamin Bloom says this. And when he says this, it is a very important statement that not only few people can shine, but it is everybody who can shine if we are able to provide the right conducive learning environment to them. And I have listed a few questions on one side. So these are well-known questions, and these are the questions, if they accompany the process of learning, I think we will move away from rote learning to thinking perhaps. This is another quote by Benjamin Bloom when he introduced the idea of mastery learning. He says creativity follows mastery. So, mastery of skills is the first priority of young talent. So, when he introduced this idea of mastery learning, he says dedicatedly you need to put in his own experience, and this is what he says, you may agree or disagree, that 10 years of continuous commitment and work in learning a particular skill will help you master it. And once you have mastered it, then you can move to newer levels. Again, I reiterate that the questions what, when, why, where, how are extremely important in this journey. Now, this is a small activity for all of us. This is a well known poem, The Daffodils by William Wordsworth, which I have put it on the slide. I would request all of you to read it once. I'm sure many of you must have already read it, but this is just for the sake of, reference and becoming familiar for the next activity. Please take 2 minutes and read it. Shall we go to the next slide?
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think there was some
Uh,
connectivity issue. Yeah, now it's clear.
okay. So, in short, all of you may have got the meaning of the poem that there's this poet who observes many daffodils and they're also very in a happy mood. And when he looks at them, he feels very happy. And when he remembers them, the memory of those happy daffodils also gives him happiness. So, in short, this is the storyline in the poem. Now, here are a few questions that I have listed. Can you please rate these questions on scale of difficulty from 1 to 5? 1 is the lowest and 5 is the highest. So 1 is the least difficult and 5 is the most difficult. Please take a minute and do so.
Question one, Avantika,
Yes,
maybe, and
yes.
Professor Alvar has also said one.
Okay. 1, it's the least difficult. All right. Question 2.
Three.
3, all right. Question 3.
Alvar has answered four. Avantika, ma'am, has answered two. Anusha, four.
Okay. Yes. All right. I would like to take this point of why there is a difference in the level of difficulty. Okay. Next.
But Panduranga Swami has said 3, 8, and 10.
All right. Okay. So you got an idea, so you can try it out at your level. What I would like to understand is if we are framing questions, then we need to understand these on the scale of difficulty. All right. And you have rated it as per your understanding. Now, there were certain questions which were ranked differently on the scale of difficulty. So the reason for that could be, now there is no one correct answer to that. The reason could be that if the profile of the learners is of high exposure to this kind of activity, this particular question may appear simpler to them. So in that sense, the question can be very easy. Or it could be that in that particular question, the expected responses may be very easy, again, depending upon the profile. And therefore, there may not be sometimes agreement based on what is the level of difficulty, which is perfectly all right. So we move to the next problem that a teacher may face or a parent may face, that is what is easy and what is difficult, because generally we have seen either the teachers would say so or the students will say that the question paper was very easy or the question paper was difficult, which reflects on their performance. So the first question that we have is, what does the difficulty level of questions mean? And what does it imply for the student and what does it imply for the teacher? So the first question is maybe the kind of effort that is expected on the part of student. So a student will need to put in a certain kind of effort to arrive. If it is less effort, it is easy. If it is more effort, it will be difficult. Now that we understand, but what does it imply for the teacher? Any response?
Based on their learning. Bharati has answered as based on their learning.
Yes. So the teacher will have to decide what kind
Way
of
of teaching.
efforts, yes, the what kind of effort the students are expected to make, and accordingly the difficulty level would be decided for a particular question. Now, here we get introduced to Mr. Benjamin Bloom. Uh, he he is an American educational psychologist, and he has greatly contributed to help all of us understand that learning can happen and happens at various levels. Now, whether we consider all the levels in all our teaching learning processes is a different kind of a problem. So he has classified educational objectives wherein different kind of efforts on the part of students is required, and he has also given the theory of mastery learning, which I briefly talked about in the previous slide. So what does Mr. Benjamin Bloom say is that learning can happen in three domains: psychomotor, affective, and cognitive. So very briefly, we see cognitive is it's the three H. If we must have heard about it or read about it in some other context, it's head, heart, and head. Head, heart, and hand. You do something, so that is psychomotor. You feel something, that's your affective domain, and you think, that is your cognitive domain. Unfortunately, somehow our entire teaching learning process gets focused only on one domain, that is cognitive domain, and we are able to pay very less attention to the affective domain and the psychomotor domain. I may not be able to focus too much on affective domain and psychomotor domain, and will also be focusing more on cognitive domain. But I brought this slide purposely to remember and make us also be reminded that all our teaching learning experiences need to be carefully planned so that all these domains are addressed. Now, this is getting a little technical. So this is the Bloom's taxonomy, which was proposed by Mr. Bloom in 1956. So it's not a very new problem that we are dealing with when we speak about rote memorization. A solution to the problem had been already proposed by Mr. Bloom in 1956, which is this pyramid that he presents, consisting of, at the bottom, knowledge, then comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Now, Mr. Bloom had two students and colleagues who worked with him, Anderson and Krathwohl, who revised this Bloom's taxonomy in 2001, and it is presented as remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So very interesting thoughts about this is, if you look at the shape, it is in the form of a pyramid. Now, does it mean that many students will be able to do what is given at the base and very few will be able to do the acts which is expected at the top, that is evaluation in the old version, create in the revised version? Or is it that once you master this, then only one or two or very few learning experiences or assessment items that we need to be doing at evaluation level or in the revised version at create level would automatically take care and attend to all the previous levels that are given? So it's not going by the number of students who will be able to do this, but how many acts of learning and assessment can be subsumed under one act at the top. That is how we view this pyramid of Bloom's taxonomy. Now, there's a difference in the way it is revised. The previous version shows nouns: synthesis, analysis, application, comprehension, knowledge, evaluation. So the revised version suggests that let us state certain actions, certain verbs, so we know what this learner will be able to do. So the learner will be able to remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. So we know this is the task that will be accomplished by the learner based on the question that we have stated. Now, this is another version of the Bloom's taxonomy. It is a sort of an inverted pyramid where the first three levels are considered as hierarchical. We cannot go to apply before we master remembering and understanding. So the first three levels are hierarchical, but the last three levels, analysis, evaluation, and create, are considered by many as equivalent or similar, thereby demanding a similar kind of cognitive effort on the part of the students. Going further and making it a little more technical, what a learner will be able to do. So here I have mentioned a few statements. Please take 2 minutes to read these statements and let us try to see where more effort is required and where less effort is required. Which statement will require least effort?
Second one.
Second one,
Continuous
compare and
service.
contrast. Okay, so compare and contrast. I would like to pose a question on for this response, that is, can you compare and contrast without understanding what it is? So it may require a little more effort. Before that, maybe the effort required will be what it is and what has been the timeline. And then you can compare and contrast. All right. What about statement number 6? I can devise new methods to minimize the effects of greenhouse gases on the Earth's climate. How much effort is required? How much thinking is required? How much of other levels of understanding are to be mastered to be able to do this? So maybe you need to know existing methods. You need to understand their limitations and advantages. You need to understand what is greenhouse and the effect of greenhouse on Earth's climate, and then based on that design a new method. So it is subsuming under one act of assessment so many prior levels which you need to understand. So just I am repeating the same slide. What we are asking the student to put in terms of efforts is just remember. So we have been speaking about rote memorization. So if the entire question paper or the entire assessment is based on rote memorization, we are only at this level, remembering and sometimes at understanding. The levels of apply, analyze, evaluate, and create do not get attended to. Is rote memorization not desirable? I think it's a very difficult question. And it is not that rote memorization is not important, but it is important only at this level. Having done that, because you need to remember certain things, then only we can move to the next point. If we are only focusing on the first two levels and not at all addressing these levels, then perhaps we are restricting ourselves only to rote memorization. If we have to unlock the power of thought, then we have to begin take care of this also, but then begin to address questions, assessment at this level, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. That this will help us to take the learning beyond rote learning. Now, these are just some verbs that I am sharing with you. If you search, you will get a long list. So if we use this action verb, words, cite, add, acquire, analyze, appraise, abstract, then maybe if your questions are formed based on this, you will be able to frame questions across these levels and help students to move beyond rote learning. So moving further again, when we say when you have to remember, let us not say rote learning is very bad. No, it also requires efforts. But what is it that we will be able to accomplish through rote learning? So it is only that we need to know facts, terms, terminology, specific conventions, trends, sequences, because without knowing this, we cannot go to the next level. So knowledge of universals, abstractions in a field. So this part is addressed when we are at the first level of remembering, which is also important. So what are the four primary states of matter? Can you list the main events of civil war? Yes, these also need to be remembered. But if we stop at this, then there is a problem. So we move to the next level, that is understanding. Now, when we are understanding, we are trying to connect the various ideas, compare them, interpret them, state main ideas. We translate, we interpret, we extrapolate. So we have moved to the next level, again prompting us to think. A question could be, how would you explain the concept of supply and demand? Till here it is rote memorization. Now, to someone who is new to economics, has added another angle where the student needs to think. Can you summarize the main idea of the research article you just read in your own words? Now, here there is another challenge which is posed in the current times by AI. When you just submit the article and the AI helps you to summarize, that is a different level of challenge, and I think a topic for another talk. Currently, we shall not touch on that. Now we have apply. So when you say apply, you're applying the known rules to a new situation. So a question could be, given a real world scenario, how would you use the Pythagorean theorem to solve a practical problem? So to know Pythagorean theorem is recall, rote memorization, but now you are applying it to a real world scenario. Can you demonstrate how to conduct a chemical titration in a laboratory setting? So you're applying, we are moving a level higher in thinking. Now we move still higher where we try to analyze. So when we are analyzing, we are also examining various aspects of the topic with various elements. And then not only what are the elements, but what is the relationship between the elements, what organizational principles they follow. So a question could be, what are the key factors contributing to the decline of a particular species in an ecosystem? How do the social and economic factors influence voting patterns in a specific region? See, these are not my original questions. I have also read and brought, but I think these are good samples, good examples, so I'm presenting to you. Now we move even one step ahead, that is evaluation. So evaluation is basically making a judgment, and you will make a judgment based on certain criteria. So judgments in terms of internal evidence or an external criteria. So here you will compare and contrast the strengths and weaknesses of the two different programming languages for a specific project, or assess the effectiveness of a marketing campaign providing recommendations for improvement. So when you're making judgment, this also can be raised to a much higher level by saying that you set the criteria, and then you justify the criteria based on which you're going to evaluate, and then you show your judgment based on the criteria that has been set. So much of higher order thinking would be automatically nurtured in a student. Now this is create. This is the highest level as per the Bloom's taxonomy, which says you produce a unique communication, production of a plan or a proposed set of operations. So whatever information you have, you combine it in a different way, in a new pattern, as a proposal or as an alternative solutions. So here some examples are: design a new and innovative product that addresses a common problem in society. Develop a comprehensive lesson plan that incorporates various teaching methods to enhance student engagement in a particular subject. So there's no given answer to this. And when you're creating, there will be a lot of base work which will be required and which will make the student follow the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy till the student tries to answer this question. This is one chart which I found very interesting. So we have been discussing the cognitive process dimension. Remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate. This we have discussed till now. But we also need to understand that the topics that we discuss also have a knowledge dimension. So any topic would have factual knowledge. Now, factual knowledge will help you to the first level of Bloom's taxonomy, that is, you remember, is factual knowledge not important? No, it is important. Without factual knowledge, you may not be able to move to the next level. Factual knowledge and restriction to factual knowledge becomes a problem when your entire inquiry and assessment stops at factual knowledge. Then we have conceptual knowledge, which you can teach and assess through understanding. After this, we have procedural knowledge, how a particular act or an experiment is to be done, what is the method of inquiry, and this can be done through the level of applying. And after this, we have metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. So what do you know? What are the strategies that you're going to use, apply to learn new things? What is your assessment of current self-knowledge? What are the cognitive tasks that you can do and what is it that you need to know so that you can move to the next levels, analyze, evaluate, and create. So Bloom's taxonomy has given us this cognition process dimension. Let us also understand the knowledge dimension of the themes that we teach. And when we connect these, we will be able to bring in rigor in the process of teaching, learning, as well as in assessment. Now, many a times I have seen my students raise this question that they are not able to frame very complicated or questions at analysis or evaluation level or at the level of creation, because they say the topic is so simple. How can I ask a complex question based on that? Now, it is not the simplicity of the topic that one needs to consider. Of course, some topics will be very simple, but it is what about that topic that you want the students to understand and thereby raise questions is where the teacher's efforts will find a place. For example, just to conclude, I will recite a very well-known nursery rhyme that we have. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. Now, if we have to frame questions, assessment items based on this very simple poem, what is so complicated about this poem? We have been reciting this poem right from our pre-primary times. So, if you ask where did Jack go, I mean, like, it's not a question to be asked. It's straight given in the poem, in the rhyme. Can we then ask, why do you think Jack fell? What could have been done so that Jack would not have fallen? Why do you think Jill tumbled after him? Now, this is where, though the poem is very simple, this is where the students will begin to think and find alternatives. Some of the references that I referred to as I was working on this presentation. Thank you for your time.
Ma'am, we have a first question from Professor T. Alvar Murugan. Why is that only rote learning or memorizing is being tested in schools? And why not other aspects in the Bloom's taxonomy pyramid? Won't understanding take away the burden of memorizing concepts?
Yes, I'm very happy you asked this question, and there are many factors which work on this. So the first is, I think there is a pressure of completing a large syllabus, because if we have to help students nurture thinking and move to the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy, we need to devote that much of time in the classrooms discussions as well as for assessments. Now, therefore, less is more should be the motto if we have to help students move to the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Teach less, but teach across different levels. If we don't have time and there's too much of a syllabus to be covered, then the easiest way out, and we shouldn't blame anybody for that. That's how system has been existing. And that's how, when I see motivated stakeholders like all of you, maybe we can begin with some change at some level. So teach less, but teach it thoroughly across levels of Bloom's taxonomy.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have another question from Panduranga Swami. As a parent, how to teach slow learning students?
Okay, so this goes into a slightly different field. Now, when we say slow learners, there may be who is labeling them as slow, and in what context are they slow? That also needs to be examined, because suddenly we cannot label somebody as slow learners, number one. Number two, say slow learning can be in one particular area. Say somebody may be not able to cope with a certain subject, say generally known as maths or say English language, and they may be able to do extremely well in some others. So slow learning, I believe, should be analyzed a little and then see what is the exact nature of difficulty that the student faces. For example, in one of my English classes and even in one of my student trainee who was taking maths classes, the maths concepts were clear, but the language was difficult, so couldn't comprehend the word problem. So it was not a problem of not being able to do maths, but it was the problem of language. Similarly, in English language class, I have observed students have bright ideas, but because I do not have the required proficiency in English language, I may not be able to do well. So where lies the problem is important, number one. And secondly, if still there exists to be a problem, I think repetitions and scaffolds. Scaffolds are the helps that we give to the student who they can refer to and will work well for slow learners.
Thank you, ma'am. We have another question from Bharati C. Which method of learning will enhance the knowledge of students?
All right. Again, I would say that the word knowledge is very broad. And when you say knowledge, what is it that you are referring to? See, as I said, knowledge has also various dimensions. There is the factual part, there is a conceptual part, there is a procedural part. So if you are focusing only on factual part, then rote memorization or just remembering. But as you move to conceptual and to procedural, different activities need to be given to the students for that. So knowledge is a very broad term. What perhaps in general parlance we mean by knowledge is beyond rote memorization. But now that we have discussed various aspects technically, I think we can now analyze which aspect of knowledge do you want to focus on, only factual or procedural or conceptual.
And our next question is from Sugameshwari Ramalingam. Rote learning is essential to nurture the brain retention capacity. So kindly throw light on the statement.
Okay, so there is a lot of discussion around merits and demerits of memorization. I have seen and heard some individuals state that I also memorize maths problem which are solved. Or sometimes when you say the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy is create. So maybe we create a situation and it is practiced in the class, like what is the solution for this problem in the society, and everybody knows this, and the same question is a part of a question paper, then it is rote memorization, though the level is at create, but it is already practiced and learned. So rote memorization has a purpose in the sense that you have a quick reference point by remembering a few facts which are essential. What we do with the facts is where now we must move to.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have another question from Surya KS. Ma'am, is Bloom's taxonomy enough to compete in this era of technology? Should we move beyond that?
So I understand what you're trying to ask, but I also need to understand that when you say era of technology, what exactly are you referring to? I would say that instead of saying technology, we may say AI, as it has entered into so many aspects of our life, and AI is able to do many tasks which we make our students learn and do. For example, summarize, and you have some AI application which will summarize the text for them. Now the question is, since summarization is already an available service, I may quote that, then should I teach summary? No. Then will the students learn to analyze? I think briefly, as I said, though AI in education needs another session, but I can just briefly state that maybe we can change the type of question, still adhering to the Bloom's taxonomy. Of course, can it be modified further is a question for open discussion. So if I want to inculcate analysis in the students, then maybe the summary is given by an AI and make the student comment on the summary of how appropriate is the summary and what is missed out and how the student would like to modify it. Then that analysis is automatically inculcated. So I would say that at least let us begin with Bloom's taxonomy. For so many years we are stuck at first level and second level. Let us move up to the level of creation, and then maybe we can simultaneously explore other aspects.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. We have another question from Kalpana. Ma'am, many times children forget after explaining the lessons. What do we do for?
Yes, students forget because now what is it that they forget? That is very important. Is it their storyline? Is it their facts that they forget? Or is it that certain crucial elements that they have forgotten? Because repetition is also a very important thing. I myself, and I think many of us do forget a lot of things. What is important is for us to understand, if I forget something and that I can retrieve very easily by referring to something, then it is not a major problem. But I should know what is it that I have forgotten and where I will get it, so that my later process of inquiry is not blocked, is important. How can I remember everything unless there is a repetition? So forgetting is not a problem, but what we forget and how I can retrieve, knowing that, will address the problem.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. But there's one more question from Professor T. Alvar. Without applying knowledge or critical thinking, we may forget what we learn. Most students forget what they learned immediately after exams. If the school hours are to become more meaningful, thinking and application skills have to be imparted, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. You have stated it so well. Now, students forget for various reasons. One, what is the purpose of them learning a particular topic or a theme? Now, if we are able to help students understand the real life context of a particular topic or a content point, I think they will not forget. Now, real life context can work in two ways. One, how immediately in their practical life it is useful and applicable, and two, how that particular topic is going to help you understand the other subsequent topics that follow it in the later classes. So then I understand why remembering this particular topic is important. So blindly, if I'm just learning few things, I will forget, because I know I have to learn it only for a particular mission, that is clearing the exam. But it is a part of a connectivity of a larger knowledge system. If we as teachers are able to explain that, I'm sure there will be a little difference.
Thank you, ma'am, for that. Do we have any more questions? There's one more question, ma'am.
Yes.
Soumya from Ashwata.
Okay.
Children listen to the class and they write answers in their own way, but still they leave the keywords. Could you please guide any way so that they learn the content along with keywords?
Okay. So here I can see there are two problems. One, they write in their own way. That's no problem if students write in their own way, because that is how perhaps we will help them to think and develop their own thinking. Now, if they leave key points and the answer appears to be incomplete, then perhaps as we are discussing the concept, we can find out, maybe make circles, that this is the essential, the next part is related to that, and the third part is related to that. So essential cannot be compromised, the next part cannot be. So in this way, if you are able to relate and break the content into different parts, I think it may help them to remember that this is essential, I cannot forget it.